I'm going to make an aqua effect in Photoshop. Let's create a new file. We'll set it to be 128 by 128 pixels. I'm going to draw a shape. This shape is located in this tool. I'm also making sure that this button is selected, meaning that the shape will be a shape layer and not a path. And I'll just draw a basic shape. And I'll fill it with a color by double clicking on its color window here and choosing something from the menu. Next, I'm going to hold the Apple or Control key down and click on the vector mask thumbnail layer. This will create a selection based on that shape. I'm going to insert a new layer, and on this layer I'm going to add a gradient of white that comes up from the bottom. So I'm going to flip the black and white. I'm going to go to my gradient tool. I'm going to make sure that this one is selected, the white to nothing. And I'm just going to click underneath it and drag up into the file, but not all the way up, just kind of halfway through. And this will give it an effect as if it's being glowing from the bottom. You can also try to change your layer mode to an overlay and see if that looks any better. But this time it doesn't, but sometimes it will look better. The other thing you might want to do is hide your selection. I hold down Apple and hit H. This is a quick preview of your object, and by doing that you don't lose your selection. I'm going to make another layer, and on this layer I'm going to select the oval tool, and what I'm going to do here, so the selection, I'm going to hold down Shift Option, and this is going to intersect with my selection. So I am going to click and drag from the upper left down to the lower right and kind of intersect my two selections, and now I've got an oval, but I've also got part of my object selected as well. And I'm going to go back to my gradient, and I'm going to click and drag down into the object again from the top down. A couple things to note: I'm working within this radial gradient, and I probably want to be working within the linear gradient for both of these techniques. So I'm going to undo that, select the linear gradient, drag down, and I'll get something closer to what I want. Let's hide the selection. Maybe a little bit more gradient. Just drag again. Now I'll deselect by holding Apple and hitting D, or on a PC it's Control D. And the last thing you might want to do is try different opacities for your layers. But now I get an object that feels a little bit like it's made out of plastic. Depending on my different layer modes, I can change the feel of it. The last thing I might want to do is add a drop shadow to layer 1. So I'll click on the little Add Layer Style, choosing Drop Shadow. And here I can select a different shadow. Now I don't like the 5 by 5 pixel distance and size. I usually pull these down between 1 and 3. So I'll try distance 2, and I'll try size 2. And I get a drop shadow that's somewhat subtle. I also don't like the opacity that high. And I've got a nice subtle icon that looks like it's in the aqua style.